All right. So thanks for being here, guys. This one is probably better suited to Troy, but I'm just curious. Looking at the entire season from where we're at now, Envoy was obviously a standout for the team, and hence the MVP nomination. But do you think people have talked about like Alec turning it on during champs. Everybody's talking about Scump's performance. Do you think that one player is the X factor for you guys going into this weekend?
Uh, you want me to reiterate the question or just answer it?
It's up to you.
Well, for me, coaching these guys every single day, I notice or
This meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, guys.
Should I go again? um, so for me personally, every day I watch these guys, I think our biggest X factor of a player on the team is Preston, just because of the role he plays on the team and how much pressure he alleviates when he's playing super well. But obviously, throughout this whole year, Dylan's been super consistent. Just making the correct plays, just making the map easier to play for everybody else, doing the things that nobody else really wants to do at times. So, and just doing it really well, especially in Search and Destroy. So, I think everyone has their moments of being like an MVP candidate on this roster, but he's probably been the most consistent throughout.
All right, got you. And if I could just follow up on that real quick, what do you think of kind of like Scump's had his ups and downs all season. What do you think of his form right now?
I personally believe Seth played pretty well this season, except for like maybe like a couple matches here and there. Obviously he's playing super well right now. It's champs time for him. It's nothing new. Even if it's online, doesn't really matter. Like this guy just turns up at any given moment, especially when the pressure's at its highest. So, it's no surprise to me. But like I said, I think people don't really give him enough credit throughout the season, especially with it going to online, because I don't think our team thrives online as hard as other teams do. So, you know, to that, I feel like he played pretty well throughout most of the season, but he's obviously playing exceptionally well right now.
All right, appreciate it.
Sean Collins, your question.
Yeah, this one's for Sen as well. With this having former champions on it, I guess from a mental aspect, how players learn how to become champions, and how important is it to be mentally consistent at this time of the year?
Given the circumstances of how this year went on this game, obviously staying mentally strong is super important, especially with the transfer to online. Because online, the biggest difference for me personally watching is just the consistency of like, you know, how good a power position is and, how much more benefited you get when you play smarter. So I feel like to that, going into champs is like the most important thing. Just staying composed no matter what kind of things come your way, no matter what maps you lose. It doesn't matter. It could be your best map. You could have never lost it before. Like at the end of the day, you can go into champs, win every series 6-5, you still win the tournament. So I think it's really important just to make sure you just keep it on a map by map basis. You don't really want to overthink anything. You don't want to do things that you're not comfortable with just because it's the biggest tournament that matters, right? So I think as long as players aren't overthinking anything and really just not getting down on themselves, that's like the most important thing in my opinion.
Emily Rand.
This is also for Troy. In prepping for this weekend, how have the MP5 changes affected your prep, and then just generally, how has your preparation gone going into championship weekend?
Our preparation going to the championship weekend's pretty good. Obviously, it's a hard circumstance with only be able to practice basically two actual teams, that being FaZe and Dallas. Everyone else, like all the other practice we could possibly get right now, is low average, unfortunately, except for the exception of a few groups of players that are taking time out of their day to practice against us, like going hard, which we really appreciate. So personally, from my perspective, I don't notice that much of a difference in the MP5. I feel like everyone's kind of killing the same. Everything's kind of similar. It just looks a little bit different. I think the game's basically playing out the same, but yeah, in terms of practice, we've been looking really good. Obviously, things we could still work on, and we're trying our best to become perfect. But we're just mainly focused on sticking to our comfortable map pool going to the championship weekend, and really just hammer out the kinks that we have on the map so we're most comfortable in.
Thank you.
Jack Marsh, over to you.
Thank you. something that's been touched on slightly is the gun meta, and we saw Envoy pull out the Ram 7 over Champs Weekend last week. With the changes to the MP5, will we see Envoy continue to pull out the Ram 7, and what does they offer that other teams don't have, where they've stuck with consistent M4s, MP5s?
Envoy really only pulls out the Ram 7 on Gunrunner. Anything else, like we're pretty much straight up, but that map's a map where he prefers using more of like a hybrid gun more than just like, a straight up sub or AR. Because it doesn't really, we've tried it like all types of ways. And, through the thousands of reps we have on Gunrunner Hardpoint, we feel like whenever he uses a Ram 7 on that map, we're significantly more consistent than when he doesn't, just because of the fact that when he puts himself in certain positions on that map, he's able to thrive while still playing fast. So I feel like that's what the Ram can bring to a team if a player does try to master it. I feel like it's definitely an overlooked gun at the moment, but I don't think it's anything like that crazy or different compared to the other guns. It's just more of a hybrid.
Thank you.
Teo, over to you.
So again, this might be more angled towards Troy, but Joe, if you want to get in on it, feel free.
Just
I'm just here to look pretty on camera. It's all Troy.
I appreciate that. But yeah, so London's the matchup, and kind of looking at them and how you match up with them, they're kind of a unique team right now. They've obviously turned it on in the latter half of the season, and they have their struggles on Dom and whatnot. But they're a pretty unique team. Although everybody right now is playing at kind of peak performance, but I'm just curious to know if any of their players kind of stand out as the biggest threats to you guys.
On this title at the moment, not necessarily, at least in my perspective. Like, my players could think a little bit differently, but I think we're all are basically on the same page about this. Going into that match, they're a team that doesn't have the biggest map pool and, is kind of inconsistent at times. So I feel like those type of things are what's going to hold them back in a matchup versus us. Because we have a lot bigger of a map pool. We've mastered certain maps, I feel like, better than them, at least in my opinion. And obviously, we have 5 of the most talented players to ever play Call of Duty on this team. So, as long as we go into that match with a level head and not trying to play down to our opponents, and just play extremely confident in what we've been practicing over these past few weeks, or basically throughout this whole year, I'm so confident in these guys to be able to take that match, honestly, relatively easily.
Emily, your question.
I have a question for Joe. Here we go. If you could give the inaugural season of the CDL a grade, what would it be? Both for like your team, so like Energy Huntsmen, and then the league itself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd have to give it an A, even though that kind of seems like an odd answer, only because this season there's been a lot of curveballs, especially thrown at the league more than anyone else, with COVID kind of hitting, and me personally with having planning all the events that we're going to be here in Chicago, having to cancel everything. So I think being able to pivot multiple times, I think this has been a pretty good success here for the league itself. From the Huntsman side of things, I mean, we've been slaying it. We've been killing it. I mean, if this was LAN, it'd be a little bit different. I think we wouldn't be sitting in that 4th seed like we were. I think we'd be right up there at number 1 or 2, just because our guys tend to turn up on LAN. So I think, for us, we still have to give ourselves a pat on the back and give us that A. Online just changes it a little bit. Troy's been working hard with all the boys, and we're expecting a big thing here in Champs. But yeah, overall, I think, this has been a really good year, and I'm excited to see how this kind of leads into next year with hopefully the ability, with COVID dying down, to get some more live events in there and get back on LAN.
Thank you very much.
Jack, back to you.
This is a slightly vague question, but from each points.
Hey, Mike's cutting out.
So the question is, from each of your standpoints, how important is winning this weekend? How much does winning Champs mean to you? It's for both of you.
You can go first, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, it's a little bit different. Having been not really haven't been involved in Call of Duty. Energy at least hasn't been for at all up until we got the Huntsman team. And I'm the lone wolf out here in Chicago, born and raised. So for me, this is kind of like any other sports team that's out here, and it's really cool for me to kind of get Chicago up on the map in Call of Duty and CS win. So for me, it's pretty important. It is online, which is the only portion of it that I hate, because I'd love to be on land somewhere screaming for the boys by all means. But at the same time, too, it still holds all that prestige. It's still for a lot of money. It's still for the hometown back here in Chicago and all of the Huntsman fans across the country. So, I think it's very much just as important online as it is on land. And I'm pretty stoked for it.
I would personally say, like, with how this whole year's went, with all like the curveballs that we had, for me personally, like with how hard I try to work to get these guys as in shape as possible, like in every single map that we play, it's it's like the most rewarding feeling, especially when you're on a team that, we didn't win every tournament this season. Granted, like the whole change to online, like Joe said, but like regardless, with it being online, we've had our struggles. Obviously, some tournaments we look in some game modes, look bad in others. Some tournaments we just absolutely throw. And for me, that's like the most nerve-wracking thing. Like it'd be different if some series we just got absolutely obliterated, but a lot of the series that we've played throughout this year have been extremely close, losing super close games that are the difference between like, winning the series, losing the series, and some unfortunate events as well, like what happened to us during the Toronto weekend. So, you know, like for me, like with how passionate these guys are in every single tournament match that we play, regardless of the fact that it's online. Like you guys heard the comms after that round 11 game 5, like that's the type of passion these guys are bringing, and I'm right there with them. And winning for me at least just means everything to these guys, and it's just like a huge weight off our shoulders if we do it. So
Hey, next question.
All right, so I went through a little bit of a question enigma there. I wasn't sure which one I wanted to ask, but I've settled on kind of looking forward. Right, let's say the London thing does go easily. Up next would be Atlanta or Dallas. So I'm just curious to know, like, how do you evaluate those two teams, and do you think that you match up better with one of them?
um I mean, personally, like in scrims against both teams, like we take turns basically beating each other. Um, but in tournament matches, like we haven't played Dallas in forever, it feels like. And phase one series, we completely smoked them. The next series, we honestly throw a couple of the maps super bad, which costs us it. So personally, I don't really have a preference on who these guys play. I know it's a tournament, so at the end of the day, like I feel like both teams are going to be at similar calibers. Um, but I guess if I were to choose, I'd probably say phase first, just to get a little bit more of a warm up going into like a grand final and just a little bit more practice, because I feel like against phase we match up probably a little bit better against online at least.
And then just like tacking on to that, what do you think it is about phase that makes them a better matchup for you guys? People have obviously talked about their pace all season, but that pace slowed down a little bit with the new meta and the M4 going to double M4. So yeah, I'm just interested to know kind of what specifically about that matchup suits you guys.
I think it's the fact that there's some maps that they're blatantly not that confident on, that compared to like others that they are, that they don't veto. So I feel like that's a really big thing about them, where I feel like Dallas is a little bit more of like a complete map pool of maps that they're comfortable in. And the fact that whenever I watch FaZe play, I feel like every single one of their series goes the distance. And watching them, they're making a lot more mistakes than Dallas does. And it's not because they're a bad team, but they just have a lot of younger players on their roster who, at times can kind of lone wolf and do their own thing. We're kind of in a similar boat in that aspect. But I feel like we counter people that play like that more than a team that play like super structured.
All right, appreciate it.
Emily, you have the next question.
This is for Troy, just because you mentioned it. Take me through your mental as you're watching that round 11 against Optic. Because that was like, of all the moments this past weekend, that was the one that just made me so sad that it wasn't on land, because I really would have loved to see player reactions.
Yeah. Well, for me, like I'm kind of just ripping my hair out every series. I'm going bald, and that's why I'm wearing a hat every day now. Uh, I watched these guys play, and like we've had some nail biters, but for some reason that map just felt like I knew it was gonna go the distance the second the map started because both teams like we were both playing like super conservative and like nobody was trying to make a mistake, nobody was peeking anything, and it was just super nerve wracking to watch because one minor slip up could have cost us a big round, you know. And going into that round 11, like I liked the play call that we made, but obviously it didn't pan out initially because you know we just kind of I feel like we just expected them not to hit B as fast as they did, and obviously they did, and we were just caught off guard. So after Preston got first blooded, I kind of knew we were still good, like because they were just committing B, but we've just played so many spots in B that they had to worry about that they couldn't just instantly break in. So the second I saw, because I could only really watch Envoy's point of view at that moment. So, but through the comms, I heard Seth saying he was staying alive behind the bar like the whole time, waiting for Alec to help him. I know when Matt died on the stairs, I kind of thought it was going to go south, but obviously Alec ended up getting 2 big kills. Dylan got a kill field side and just wrapped mid, and I kind of knew that the round was going to go in our favor the second he got to like the mid arrows. And like that whole like 60 seconds of events, I did not know what to think. I was just praying. Honestly, I was just praying it went our way in that situation. So definitely nerve wracking.
Nice, thank you.
Teo, back to you.
So yeah, just touching on that sequence, you know, that as far as nail biters go, I think that's probably the most terrifying moment of the season. You know, it really
For sure.
map 5 1v1, like Seth hiding behind the bar, like that definitely a nightmare scenario. But having pulled that off, is there kind of like a sense of renewed confidence? Like, do you guys think you have a clutch factor now that you might not have been sure you had earlier in the season?
Not particularly. I think this whole season we've clutched up like a lot, and I don't think our throws really come in S&D as much as they were in a lot of our respawns throughout this year. So I feel like if we brought the same level of composure into our respawns in situations where, you know, we don't need to be frantic, just like we do in search, then I think that's what's going to help us prevail more consistently in really close respawn games. But obviously, like I said, in that series, we were just clutching up left and right in a lot of situations. I feel like that series could have went south so fast if we didn't play smart in certain spots. And you know, I'm thankful we got through. I'm not really happy about the way we performed overall, but at the end of the day, it is online COD, and with the way the servers work and how we play on these servers, like we're constantly at a disadvantage versus every team we play against in that aspect. And I'm not just using that as an excuse because we could play better, but that could be like the difference in a few kills that you know could lead us to victory a lot sooner. You know, things of that nature. So you know, I'm proud of the guys for clutching up. I don't think there's any like fresh like you know clutch factor that we have, but it's just a really good feeling. And you know, as long as we brush up on some of the things we've been underperforming on, especially during the playoff weekend, then you know I'm really confident going to the champs weekend for sure.